We will hear from Kirk Bohls, Austin American-Statesman, momentarily. A couple of Big 12 notes. Drew Davison, there was a lot of drama today on whether Zach Evans had dropped all his connections to TCU on his Twitter feed. I don't know who wants to track all that stuff down, but Drew Davison saying that he was at practice on Tuesday and was told all is good. Whether that's true or not, we'll see.
Well, there was apparently a report out there that was saying that he was not on the team, and that was wrong. So they were just clarifying that.
Just like Spencer Rattler had left the team and cleared out his locker. And then also Mike Rose, the All-American linebacker at Iowa State, John Heacock, the defensive coordinator with the Cyclones, saying he was practicing, and that's great news for Iowa State. We're now joined by Kirk Bohls of the Austin American-Statesman, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. So I have been told, Kirk, that you were actually front and center with the Josh Thompson, whatever Baylor crowd ranking was. What really happened there?
Shocker, right? Well, I try to ask probing questions to try to get some thoughtful answers instead of asking him if you're excited about playing Baylor Saturday. I thought, well, they haven't played that well on the road this year. You know, they got killed by Arkansas, end up losing the neutral site in the Cotton Bowl to Oklahoma, and they beat TCU in Fort Worth, but gave up a 99-yard drive late and had to hold on to win. So in that vein, Smokey, I asked Josh, I said, well, how would you rate Baylor as far as hostile place to play, on with 10 being the toughest? And he thought for 10 seconds, 5 seconds, he deliberated, it seemed to me, and said, I'd say about a 3. And I said, okay, just a 3, why? And then I got cut off, didn't get to ask a follow-up question. They came back to me later during the Zoom call, and I asked him to clarify it, and he was kind of saying, well, everybody gets fired up to play us, and, Iowa State's probably the toughest place to say, but, he didn't say top 3 then. And then after the Zoom press conference was over, UT reached out to me and said that Josh was confused by the question, and I said, hey, I'm not trying to trap the guy. I just wanted an honest response. And if he wants to clarify, by all means, clarify, which he did. He said he meant to say they were in the top 3 and how loud and energetic and energized the Baylor fans are. So that's kind of the sum total of the whole thing, and people can decide what is really the truth.
Well, Kirk, he'll get a good chance to see if that comment worked on firing up the Baylor fans or not.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, we in the media, we get accused all the time of gotcha questions, but I didn't consider that a gotcha question. I thought it was, fairly innocent. I just figured he'd give me they get really loud, they really support their team, and I was surprised when he said about a 3. So whatever Josh meant, I'm sure he'll get a warm reception at McLean Stadium.
So, Kirk, 4-3 now for the Longhorns, coming off of the open week. They're 2-2 in the Big 12. So, although kind of in the second pack behind, Baylor, Iowa State, and the Oklahoma schools, they're still in the mix and would definitely be with a win this weekend. But 2 straight losses and then the open week. Where's kind of the feeling right now as far as this Texas football program goes at 4-3?
I would guess a sense of urgency, first of all, and then just a sense of desperation, because to me it's very clear their season's on the line. You go 4-4 through 8 games and you're a 500 team, you're looking at a Texas Bowl or something like that. So as you said, they're still, right behind that cluster of teams with 2 losses in the league. So they can control some of their destiny. They probably have to win out, because they still have to play, Iowa State as obviously as Baylor, and go to West Virginia and the 2 Kansas schools. So they may control part of their destiny, maybe not all of it, but I just got to believe they're going to play, give a complete effort. I'm not saying they melded in against OU and OSU, but those fourth quarters and second halves were dreadful. And why they turned out the way they did is anybody's guess. Texas is, operating on the premise it's all mental, and they just kind of lose their focus. Well, I don't know if that's a cop-out or not, but I think it's at least half physical.
Yeah, and Kirk, I saw some of what Coach Sarkisian said about the psyche and kind of working on that, and that's a lot of that is what Coach is saying. He even admitted that as well. I still don't know how they melted down that game with Oklahoma. That is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk, you've seen a billion, or I don't want to say a billion, but you've seen a lot of Red River. Yeah. You've seen a lot of Red River games. Where was that one as far as just, the calamity and craziness of it for you?
It may have been number one as far as just chaotic, crazy, wild, shifts in momentum, first half to second half. I don't know if I've ever really seen anything quite like it. I mean, Texas did a little bit of that the year before, you remember, when Sam Ehlinger led them back. They were down, I guess it was 31-17 late in the third quarter, and Ehlinger, brought them back and tied the game, and then they end up losing to Oklahoma in overtimes. But this one, oh, my God, this is comeback on steroids. And, I mean, you're not supposed to blow, a double-digit lead to your arch rival when you have it late in the third quarter. And it looks like they just fell apart. And I think part of it, guys, I don't know how many difference makers they have on their team. I think Texas is a good football team because I think both of you might agree they probably should have beaten Oklahoma, and maybe Oklahoma State as well, if not for a pick six. But you can't blow a lead like that, and I think that left some scars and probably some self-doubt in the minds of some of the players.
Yeah, you imagine if they can finish where they would be. My God, with the hype machine in Austin with UT, it would be hard to almost handle. How you've seen Ricky Williams, Earl Campbell. You even saw those before them, Roosevelt Leaks, because you and I are about the same age. And then you've seen them all. Where is Bijan Robinson compared to some of the greats, in your opinion, even though he has still a long way to go?
Well, I've always said Earl Campbell is probably the best Texas Longhorn football player I ever saw because he truly was a man among boys. And, you and I are on the Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Player of the Week committee, and that's something we enjoy, considered a privilege to do. So, the bar starts at Earl. And like you said, Ricky Williams won a Heisman in '98, and he had that power and speed. I don't know if you would say Bijan Robinson's Ricky Williams light. He's so smooth, guys. He can just turn on a dime. He has a way of maneuvering his body. He doesn't get hit hard head on very much, and he can do that jump stop and one cut and he's gone. So he doesn't get trapped for negative yardage very often. He's a great receiver. He's got several touchdown passes as a receiver. In fact, he scored all three of their touchdowns against Oklahoma State 2 weeks ago. So I think he's a special running back. And you talk about a humble kid, he mentions God in every press conference. He's very religious, devoutly so, and just humble, and you won't get him to brag on himself at all. So I think he's a special player and special person.
Yeah, I felt for last year that Tom Herman, had this Lamborghini in his garage, and he just wanted to rub it with a diaper. That's all.
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
he didn't.
Yeah, it made no sense. It made no sense to any of us.
Yeah. As far as the quarterback situation goes, Kirk, how confident do you think that Steve Sarkisian is in that long term? I know that Casey Thompson's done a fairly good job since he took back over the starting role, but the end of the Oklahoma game, the end of the Oklahoma State game, was a little shakier than he had been in previous games. Is the quarterback of the future on their roster right now, or is that something that Steve Sarkisian is probably going to maybe tread water on until he really knows?
I think he is right now. Hudson Card is much ballyhooed. Georgia was going to kill to get him. They wanted him so bad. And, Charles Wright's an Austin High local quarterback who's a true freshman. I've got a lot of confidence in Casey Thompson. I wouldn't say he's been erratic. He's had some moments where he wasn't on the top of his game, like TCU. I think he threw 142 yards, only had 12 completions, I believe it was. But, then he turns around in the biggest game of the year and has 5 touchdowns, almost 400 yards against Oklahoma. And then he didn't play so well in the second half. if you saw that game, but he threw this pick six against Oklahoma State. To me, biggest play of the year. They're up 17-3 late in the second quarter. They're moving in for either a touchdown or field goal. So they could go up 20-3 or even 24-3, but a pick six makes it 17-10. Just changed everything about that game. And, he bruised his thumb a little bit against Oklahoma. So we were wondering if, maybe he didn't quite have the zip on the ball against Oklahoma State. But I think he's a very good quarterback. I think we've kind of underrated him his whole career. He's a film geek, just lives in the film room. He can break down Baylor's defense, before your very eyes very easily. So he's a cerebral guy. And he's not really a running threat, but he can move in the pocket. But I don't know. I've got a lot of faith in him. He turned out a whole lot better than I thought he would up to this point.
Well, Kirk, I think he's going to play a big role this weekend because we know Texas loves to, do what they can with Bijan and hit on some big plays to the likes of an Xavier Worthy or a Joshua Moore. I was curious your thoughts on just the Texas attack this weekend and what you think they can do through the air, because if there is a question mark about this Baylor defense, it is in that back end and in that secondary. I know that Jordan Whittington loss hurt them, but besides Worthy and Moore and then Bijan in the passing game, kind of where does the Longhorns wide receiver core stand?
Well, it's very unstable, and even Sarkisian on Monday talked about how inconsistent it is. And Xavier Worthy has become the alpha dog, true freshman. He had committed to Michigan and from California kid, and Sarkisian was recruiting him for Alabama when he was still the OC there. So this kid's special. I'm telling you, he's very slender. He's very slightly built, but he can run like a deer, and he can go up and get it. And you talk about confidence. Sometimes too much confidence. He ran out that kickoff out of the end zone and fumbled to Oklahoma, which was a huge turnover, late in that game. But he doesn't have any fear at all. I mean, in that game, he had I think it was 261 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma. So he's a confident guy. Now, Joshua Moore has disappeared a little bit. Hasn't had near the year that he had last year. And you mentioned Jordan Whittington's loss, broken clavicle. That's a big-time loss. They miss him. And they haven't really used the tight ends as much as Sarkisian spent the whole offseason talking about. They've got several good tight ends. Maybe they're saving them for Saturday or not. But I thought we were going to see more use out of them. And another guy they got is Keelan Robinson, the running back from Alabama who transferred. He's a blur. He may be, he or Deshaun Jameson, the fastest two on the team. And they haven't really used him. He caught one pass for 25 yards early against Oklahoma State, and then he had 1 carry for 1 yard, and that's it. So I'm not sure why they didn't use him more, but I really thought the offense would show more than they have, to be honest with you guys. But part of that is a byproduct of the offensive line just not being that good.
Yeah, I tell you what, we had Sarkisian on during Big 12 Media Days. Really like him. I do. I like him quite a bit, and I wish him the best of luck. We might see with the guys you mentioned, with Jameson and also with Ebner, someone might go 85 or 100 with those two because they're both, and I know Worthy could as well, but my goodness, in the kick return or punt return game, that could get interesting on Saturday as well.
Yeah, it really could. Deshaun Jameson's kind of been on the verge of breaking a couple. He broke one. I guess it was Louisiana, got called back. But, yeah, I keep waiting for him to do what. And Ebner, I'm on the All-American committee, and, we got him on there last year. Ebner's what, a ninth-year senior?
Yeah, basically.
No, he's a ninth-year senior plus the COVID year. He's actually been there 10 years. Yeah, 10. Yeah.
It seemed like it. It seemed like it. And Abram Smith, boy, you got a guy who's played linebacker and now as a running back. I like that kind of toughness. So I don't know. I don't see too many weaknesses, in this Baylor team. I think, it's probably the most complete team, in the Big 12. I mean, top 20 scoring offense and defense, one of only 4 Power 5 teams, and, no penalties against BYU. I've never heard of that, especially with a Big 12 or officiating crew. Maybe they were independent or BYU brought them, but that was a stunner.
What would be more of a conspiracy is if they played against Texas and Oklahoma and had no penalties. That would yeah. Kirk, one more thing. I think Bryce Cherry said this in the press conference with Dave Aranda. This is the 111th meeting, Baylor and Texas, and could be the last time they ever play in Waco. Now I know that Floyd Casey at times was not very full, but the last 10 or 12 years, Baylor's been pretty good other than a couple of hiccups. Does that factor into anything yet at all?
You mean as far as playing each other in the future?
Yeah, they're not going to most likely. Mac Rhodes just said, "Hey, listen, we're not against anything," because they didn't want to get into the egomaniac of A&M and Texas. Screw you, we're not playing. It's up to us, not you. But it could be the last time they play in Waco at McLean Stadium. Of course, forever it was Floyd Casey as well.
I mean, Smokey, that's a possibility. I don't think any of us think Texas know you're going to be there through 24-25 school year, do we? I mean, that seems untenable. I mean, it's awkward, and then there's awkward times a million, if they stay that long. So it might be their last trip to McLean. I hope not, and I think it just makes so much economic sense for both sides, for Texas to play Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, and kind of keep those rivalries alive. And, your fans can go to Baylor or go to Fort Worth and places like that, where if you have Alabama coming in and LSU coming in, tickets are going to be hard to get, I would think. So I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of keep, playing these schools. And I don't know, to me, it's kind of sad that we're seeing the end of the Big 12. I just get so many friends like you guys and so many relationships built up over the years. So, but money talks, as we all know. So if this is the last time, I think Josh Thompson and all of us should just savor it.
Kirk, I got a couple more questions for you. One of those being, what has it been like? Have you sensed an extra hostility so far in Big 12 play, any more than the normal hostility that Texas gets when they hit the road?
I can't say that I have. I mean, it's out there. I think maybe it's more of the administrators, like, Bob Bowlesby. I mean, Bob wasn't even at the Texas OU game, which was a pretty large game. I think he was in Waco that day.
Yep.
And so, to me, that was kind of a petty move. It's like, hey, Texas and OU, one of the premier games in the nation, game day was there. So, I kind of hate to see stuff like that. But I don't blame anybody, really, because the way Texas and OU snuck out the back door, I really don't blame them for the hurt feelings and stuff. But I don't know. Fans are going to be fans, so there's going to be a lot of hatred and vitriol and animosity. And I don't know. I'm sure we'll see some good signs Saturday and the rest of the way, so especially when they go to Iowa State and West Virginia.
No doubt. So I think, Sarkisian and his offensive mind versus Aranda and Ron Roberts and their defensive minds is going to be a fascinating clash, especially because they both had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So I think that will be really interesting. But then on the flip side, you've got two highly touted coordinators, Jeff Grimes and the Baylor offense. We've seen what he's done to turn them around. What have you made of Pete Kwiatkowski's defense? I know there's been some flashes of good things. There's also been some flashes of not so good things. Where do you kind of see them and view them right now going into this game?
Very disappointing, I would say. I wouldn't give him real high marks right now. I mean, I think the latest stats, I think they're 106th in total defense, giving up over 430 yards a game. And against the run, they're even worse. I think they're like 114 or 115 against the run. So they're not getting it done. And they seem to tackle so much better until the last 2 weeks. And I don't know if that's fatigue, especially in the fourth quarter when conditioning is a factor. It's so hard to tell that. But, Sarkisian has said, we weren't in the right gaps and that sort of thing. Well, when you get tired, you don't think as quickly, you don't react as quickly, and, nothing goes as well. But, Pete Kwiatkowski, we don't get to interview him. We interviewed him in the summer, and then that was it. So we don't get to talk to him each week. And he's a guy that keeps everything in front of him. He doesn't want to give up an 80-yard pass. But that might play right into Baylor's hands because Baylor's so workmanlike and methodical, they'll just keep the ball and just drive on down the field. So the other thing I've noticed, hasn't Baylor scored on their first 3 drives in 2 different games this year against, Iowa State and either West Virginia or BYU? Yep. So Sarkisian better note that and better come out firing because, You get behind, 14-0 or even worse with a team that's lost 2 in a row and starting to doubt itself. That could be a recipe for disaster.
And Aranda said the same thing about Texas because of their fast starts and how they've jumped on teams. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun game, interesting game with a lot of storylines.
You're right. Texas has been a first half team. I was kidding on our podcast today that Sark should call it the first half and then the second first half. Just don't even use the word second half. But it's all mental, remember?
Yeah, it's a psyche thing. Kirk, thank you, man. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Kirk Bowles, again, Austin American statesman, covering Texas and had covered the Big 12 and college football in general, and all a part of various All-Americans, Heisman, Earl Campbell Award, and much more. Now,
yeah, it's good to have him on that committee for the Earl Award. He see his vote cast every week, and he's been doing his thing for a long time. And I can't wait for this game. I just think there's a lot of interesting aspects. There's a boatload of really good players on both rosters, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I'm kind of at that point of the week now where I'm just starting to get a little antsy of like, all right, let's get there already.
So imagine if you were playing.
Oh, I know.
You don't want to play the game on Wednesday. You got to make sure you're ready to play it at
That's
11
why
o'clock.
I'm sitting here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Baylor fans, Josh Thompson might or might not have called you a 3 out of 10.
I think he called you a 3.
I think he called you a 3.
I think he did.
Yeah.
It's the onus is on you to be
I was told that all of a sudden that audio was erased.
I actually did see a clip of it.
Because if he didn't mean to say that and he'd been corrected himself, but I heard it might have been deleted.
Well, I heard some type of a clip from it or read some type of a quote. I can't remember now, but I saw it yesterday, and I can see where he was misquoted, especially if another question interrupted that. I can see where that got twisted, and I don't think he was trying to talk trash, but I'm going to pretend that he did. I'm going to pretend that he called you Baylor at 3.
And part of the reason it made it worse is because they did clip it and have tried to do that. And the other thing is, if you've got a school it's kind of accusing itself right now of not having a great atmosphere, and then you kind of say, yeah, you know what, they're right about themselves, you don't want to make them self-aware.
Hey, Armstrong, can you go to @Brock_Nolan, NOWLIN 34? He sent this out and tagged us. From, let's see, this is like
I don't think we want to play that.
You know?
I don't think so. It's like a whole hype video. I mean, unless you think the audience out there, I mean, I don't know how non-Baylor fans are going to really be interested in it, but it's a good video. I retweeted it yesterday.
If you want to watch it, go to @Brock_Nolan, NOWLIN 34. He uses some of the audio with Josh Thompson and trying to fire up the Baylor fans. That's
okay, if you want to play it, go. I mean, I'm not trying to. I thought you were wanting to play the whole video, not the Josh Thompson part. But yeah, he does. He does have that clip. No. I thought you were trying to play the whole video, but
you want to do that after the break?
It's
Paul?
right at the beginning of it, I believe. Huh? Yeah,
let's do it after the break.
Break here.
I don't want to rain on that guy's parade, but Sikkim 365 has their own hype video using that audio clip.
Okay, well then we'll do that.
And it's much shorter.
All right, we'll do that. What's next? Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Alan Samuels